Wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. A blessed and pleasant good evening to you all. Blessed and pleasant good evening to you all. Wonderful, 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 wonderful. Share the live before I start. Share the live as you come in. You can share the live. Share the live as you come in. Share the live. And the reason why I'm asking to share the live because there are persons who do not get the notification anymore that the Gavin Matthews show is live. There are also persons who are not well aware that the Gavin Matthews show is still running. Uh, as you come and share the live, there are also persons who are acting and operating in a manner that is causing some harm to others who wants to view the Gavin Matthews show live. And we will be getting to that shortly, right? But as you come in, share the live, share the live, share the live, share the live. I'll start in another minute. Share the live. Good night to you, to those who are now joining, to those who are now getting the feed, getting the notification. Black love to you all. Black love. And I appreciate all those who are now joining. Welcome you all from Guyana to the Caribbean Isles, the West Indian Isles, the Pacific Isles, the British Virgin Isles, the US Virgin Isles, the Maldives, Mexico, the US, Canada, UK, EU, China, Beijing, Hong Kong, Japan, Tajikistan, and Uzbekistan. To those who are joining me from the Korean Peninsula, I got a few followers from the Korean Peninsula. So good night to you all. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, to whichever is your time zone. Good night or good evening to you who are joining from the Australian continent, the New Zealand Isles, and the Tonga Isles. To those who are looking at the Gavin Matthews show from the African continent and from the South American continent, from as far as Chile and Argentina, as far as from Venezuela and Colombia, as far as from Suriname, which is right next door, the French and Dutch Guyana, the Netherlands, Curacao, welcome you all this evening. This evening, we want to have a conversation again, and we want to discuss what is a democracy. And you can call in, let's have that discussion. What really is a democracy? Or what does democracy in itself stands for? Well, politically, not meaning by word, but politically. Democracy is known as a place where a human being can exercise his or her rights freely without being violated, without being oppressed, and without being marginalized. And when I say marginalized, I mean slavery and division. One wants to understand that When we look at Guyana's political climate and they talk about democracy, especially this de facto administration, talking about a democracy and the exercise of a democracy and what does this de facto administration does as a democracy. You understand? What really is a democracy? You know? And I want to have that discussion this evening with you because I want us to understand what is it that when we talk about a democracy, what do we mean? The help is needed here this evening, and we're here to give each other an understanding what do we expect when our leaders talk about the democracy. When we hear SOPs, we hear in our brain statement of polls. But do SOPs normally mean statement of polls? No. It has different meanings, but one of them means standard operating procedures. And in a democracy, according to our constitution, there are standing operating procedures. I'm going to share with you one of them. There is a commission that is called the Police Service Commission, the PSC. And in that Police Service Commission, there are what you call standard operating procedures by the Guyana Police Force. So officers who are looking and the junior ranks who are paying attention to what is being said here tonight, I bid you ears so that you can hear. And I know that you're listening. The executive president of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, his position where the police force is concerned is over two persons: the commissioner of police and the deputy commissioner of police. He chooses them, and the reason for his choices over the commissioner of police and the deputy commissioner of police, it is to carry out the operating procedures of the executive. That is why he chooses them. But his operating procedures only lies within the commissioner of police and the deputy commissioner of police, not the junior ranks under them. Under the junior ranks are what you call the Police Service Commission. The Police Service Commission makes sure that the police complaint authorities is activated. And within the police complaint authorities, they're what you call the internal investigating rank of the police complaint authorities. And there's what you call the police welfare. Now, no rank, no rank carries out the instructions of the commission. instructions of the Commissioner of Police. Sorry for that break in transmission, but we want to get things rolling. Now, when I say there are standard operating procedures like promotions of the Guyana Police Force, the Police Service Commission is in charge of promoting the junior ranks because by law and by constitution, that is their authority. Their authority is to make sure that the standing operation or procedures of the Guyana Police Force, which falls under Chapter 1701, the Disciplinary Service Act, are being carried out with importance. The job of the Commissioner of Police is to make sure that these SOPs are being carried out to its fullest. And his job is to brief the president or the prime minister upon things that is pertaining to the Guyana Police Force and the reduction of crimes that's supposed to be looked after by the Guyana Police Force. That's his job. Very simple. He's not responsible for all the things that people are talking about. His job is not a big one. It's a simple, easy one. But it has now becomes the dictate of the President of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Since when the post or the position of the Commissioner of Police is activated politically, where any member of the executive, meaning the Minister of Home Affairs, meaning the how should I put it over? The attorneys general and anybody else can come into play of the directions of their office upon the Commissioner of the Guyana Police Force. That's what seems to be happening now. So all the standard operating procedures have been knocked out because people don't seem to care about it anymore. So now the police force is acting beyond their constitution. So when cases now goes to the court, whether it be the magistrate court or the Supreme Court or the appeals court, guided by the Guyana Police Force, 90% of those cases are being thrown out because they act and operate beyond their standing operating procedures. Can you remember when I was arrested for what we call it alleged cybercrime? The very first thing that policeman did was to identify himself and Mirandized, read me my rights. After which so doing, took me to the lockups, placed me under arrest, took me to the lockups. There, I was even further guided. When last anybody heard a policeman ever did that? I'm serious. When you look upon the Facebook and social media, police arresting people without giving them their own rights, they just turn up with guns in their hand. Let me show you a standard operating procedure of the police. Policemen are trained that when you go to a scene or a crime scene or a crime in action, or you find yourself in such a state that if you feel that you or your rights as a policeman is under threat as to preserve life, you withdraw your weapon from your holster when you experience a clear and present danger. Now, policemen are turning up with their weapons drawn. Policemen are firing off shots into the air on an unarmed civilian. We have 10 and 15 policemen slapping and kicking the daylights out of an unarmed civilian. We have policemen shooting civilians in their feet or in their foot. You know what you call that? A violation of your SOP. It is a violation of your standard operating procedure. That is what is going on. So what happens now? Remember, the standard operating procedure, is the constitution of your office. That's what it is. It is how you're being guided to act and to operate. That is why when the person goes to court and he has a lawyer that represents him and he have all the evidence that shows that you haven't exercised your SOP, then the case has been thrown out. That's one. Number two, you cannot place a man under arrest based upon suspicion. A report is being made. You go and you investigate the report. As you gather evidence and the information gathered is the person that is based upon the report who's been made, then you make that arrest. Because that is the standard operating procedure. So now what the police does in Guyana, it is violate your constitutional rights. First, they arrest you without proper investigation. That's the first thing they do. The second thing they do, they hold you for 72 hours, and they say now that the Constitution gives them the right to hold you for 72 hours. Yes, they're not lying, but at the end of the 72 hours, you have to charge me. Because you cannot hold me for 72 hours and release me back into the general public. You now violate my human rights and my constitutional rights. The Constitution says so, not Gavin Matthews. So because people are not financially strong or economically strong in the financial areas, they can't challenge the Guyana police force anymore because they don't have the capital to secure an attorney at law to represent them. So that is the problem now. So what happens if I got an attorney to represent me? I can take the government to court. That now becomes the office of the Attorney General because he represents the Guyana Police Force. He represents the lawyer. He represents the government of Guyana. So anything that has been committed by the arms of the government can now be challenged through the office of the attorneys general. So a lot of twisting of arms are being taken place, and nobody knows their rights. So let me put the Ghana Police Force once. So those who are now joining me talking about standard operating procedures. Let us go to the Ghana Elections Commission. The Ghana Elections Commission has been run by a chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission and 6 commissioners. 6 commissioners, 3 commissioners of the opposition, 3 of the government. He or she is the neutral body. And this is their standing operation commission. This is the standing operating procedures of the Commission of Commissioners. Now, if the Chief Elections Officer provides a report to the Commissioner of the Ghana Elections Commission by their standing operations procedures, which is a declaration of all 10 declared districts by 10 returning officers, talking about the standing operating procedures. Now, the Constitution says, by the standing operating procedures of the chairperson of the Ghana Elections Commission, which the standing operating procedures is the constitution of the office of the Chief Elections Officer, who presents his or her report to the chairperson of the Commission of Commissioners. The chairperson is only guided. The report of the Chief Elections Officer, the chairperson's decision could only be guided by that report, nothing more else. That is what happened in the March 2nd, 2020 regional general elections gone. The standing operating procedures. That is what happened. So the fault is not on the Chief Elections Officer. The fault is at the Commission of Commissioners. So this is what happened. After a declaration was made, the standing operating procedures kicked in. The same Commissioner of Commissioners, Claudette Singh, declared to the nation that the elections were free and fair. That's what she said. I don't have to get a tape recorder to play it back. That is what she said. It was plain and simple. So a declaration was made. It went to the Commissioner of Commissioners, and she now sits and declares such results from the Chief Elections Officer to the 6 commissioners of the commission. 3 from the opposition, 3 from the executive government. Now, if there's a dispute, this is what the Constitution says, not Gavin Matthews. If there's a dispute, the Constitution says, or the supreme law, since people are getting mixed up, says that you have to challenge that decision via an elections petition. So here when everything went wrong, after a declaration was made, the problem did not arise in the declaration because 10 declared districts from 10 returning officers already declared. Now there got some people going to say, wait, hold on. Did it challenge the regional before declaring returning officer Mingo because of fraud. Don't bother with the spin, you gotta bother with what went on in the court. Same Roxanne George Wiltshire. She said in her declaration, it's there. She said to Mr. Mingo, look, according to your standard operating procedures, you have violated that procedures by not declaring the manner in which you're supposed to declare. In other words, she said to him, nobody can declare for you whilst you are strong and healthy. Only you can do that. The law provides that if you become hospitalized during that process, well, then the deputy returning officer does that. So here what you're going to do now. You're going to go back there and declare your results via your standard operating procedures. And only you, that's what she said to Mr. Clement Mingo, nobody else. She said to him, only you are required to go and make that declaration. Everything else you throw outside the window. He went back and he declared his district. Whether you like it or not, you have to have what you call an elections petition. Now, you can only file an elections petition after a declaration and a swearing of a president would have been made. After two things, a declaration and you swearing a president. That's the only time the law gives you to file an elections petition. So what happened? The very elite decided to swing and twist the understanding. This is what it said. It is now said that I'm back. Okay, good. I had a short break in transmission there. Excuse me a bit, for please. Okay, I think it's a bumping off time since since the last, but it's okay. I'm accustomed to that. So we're talking about the standard operating procedures. Now, what happens now? So the commissioner of commissions her position is not to follow any three commissioners. Her position as chairman of the commission of commissioners is to follow the guidelines of the chief elections officer. That's her position. Nothing more, nothing less. That's her position. Is to follow the guidelines of the chief elections officer. That is her standard operating procedures. And it did not give her a wide range of powers. She cannot call a recount. It was unconstitutional. Here why the recount is unconstitutional. The recount can only be guided before a declaration of a district. That's what the Constitution says. This thing is plain and simple. This thing is plain and simple. It's nothing hard. Order 60 becomes unconstitutional. Here why Order 60 becomes unconstitutional. Sections 162 of the Constitution was guided to create Order 60, but that's incorrect. The only way a recount could happen is at the station of poll, where that polling station is, and before the declaration of that polling station, which is the SOP, statement of poll, you find discrepancies. That discrepancies before declaration needs to be forwarded to the returning officer, who now activates that particular section of the Constitution to say we can have a recount before that ballot box is closed. That is how a recount is guided by the Constitution. So when they try to quote Article 162 of the Constitution to say gives them powers to know, it did not give the chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission to activate a recount. That is not within her preview or guidelines. So she doesn't have a wide range of powers to do anything necessary. The only position gives her to operate and to act like that is you'll find more than one returning officers find it difficult to declare their districts because of incorrect information. That is now when the chairperson of the Commission of Commissioners steps in, because the law provides that. That did not happen. Every returning officer declared their district. There was nothing impossible for claimant Mingo. The High Court said to claimant Mingo that only you, not your deputy, to declare anything whilst you're healthy, only you. So you now got to go back and declare your district because you're the returning officer. And he went back and declared his district. So there weren't no discrepancies found after 10 declared regions of 10 returning officers declared their districts. The chairman of the Commission of Commissioners, which is Claudette Singh, jumped up and said the elections was free and fair. Now, those who are now coming in, the topic is what is a democracy? And under that democracy, political democracy I'm talking about, because if you check the real meaning of what is democracy, a lot of us won't call it a democracy. You understand? So the topic is what is a democracy and the standing operations of a democracy that are found in the supreme law of the which is the Constitution. Now, you had 10 declared districts. Now, this is where the crime now is committed. After 10 declared districts would have declared, after 10 returning officers would have declared their districts to the chief elections officer, and a report was guided. Her position was to declare the chief elections officer report not only to the 6 commissioners but to the nation. So she didn't do that. What she did, prompted by the 2 individuals, which is the president and the opposition leader then, Mr. Jagdeo, which they had no right, because the Constitution says the only body can declare or withdraw an election. It is the chairperson of the Guyana Elections Commission of Commissioners, Ms. Khaled Singh. So when the 2 of them got involved, that now becomes unconstitutional. To those who are looking, I want you to understand what I'm saying tonight. I don't want nobody to misinterpret me. So what the both of them did, sat down, you understand, and interfered with a constitutional process. So subsequently, the case ended up at the Caribbean Courts of Justice by a normal citizen who objected to a decision made based upon valid votes or more valid votes in a recount process. Our well-learned now, de facto, insane Attorney General, because that's what he is, he was being interfered with rodents in his brains, so it started eating away at the colonization of his brain, because he thinks he's all bright and beautiful. Approach the Caribbean Court of Justice to talk about fraud. There and then, the president of the Caribbean Court of Justice said to them, and only them, he said, Order 60 is a separate electoral regime. It is not according to the Constitution. The only body who has the right to declare an election is the Guyana Elections Commission. So although the case went to the CCJ, they're trying to reason about fraud and fraudulent conversions. And he said to them, and only them, that the Guyana Elections Commission has to declare an election, and that is only based upon the report of the chief elections officer. So what happened after then? We had problems. We had major problems. Everybody twisting and turning and shaking, gnashing of teeth. All these things were happening at the same time. So let me tell you what played on. They came back to Guyana and a recount was processed. And in that recount, they had a stop and a pause and a go ahead and a pause again. And all these things happen. We had criminals in the Caribbean community came, and I call them criminals. I have no apologies for them. Because when you're coming to Guyana or to a country to participate in its electoral process, you would have been advised by your legal authority not to interfere because their constitution does not provide for anybody to interfere with an electoral process. Nobody. You know why I'm telling you that? Article 25(5) of the Constitution was passed in 2004 under the Barrett Jack Dio's government and the passage of the opposition leader then, Mr. Robert Corbyn. It instructed the Caribbean Court of Justice not to interfere with any electoral process of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana because the last court is the appellate court. Did anyone hear me? The Constitution says so. That was 2004. When the Caribbean community interfered with Guyana electoral process was 2020. It now becomes a crime. So we got 3 criminals. We got the ex-drug lord of Jamaica, Mr. Golding, because he encouraged what he went on in Jamaica with. He was then now acting on behalf of the Organization of American States. You got St. Vincent and the Grenadines Prime Minister, Mr. Ralph Gonsalves, the man now who is before the courts. He has but 10 elections petitions that the opposition is challenging him through the courts. And he has also 2 pertaining to, we call them people's molest children. Try to remember they would have got before the court for. Somebody give me the name. Where does molest children with, man? Those people who are noticed for molesting children, underage girls. You understand? That is what is before the courts for. You understand? So it's criminals representing criminals. Then you got Maya Motley, who has, yes, the right person says pedophile. He has pedophile charges in the High Courts of St. Vincent and the Grenadines for him. I have no apologies for these criminals. Then you got Miles before the court for taking away people's land in Barbados. Chasing people out of the country, got them running right now. Helter skelter, they ban Barbadians can't return back home. So we got people with who are questionable characters involved in Guyana electoral process that are committing crimes. That is why Mr. Keith Rowley, who was supposed to be the other one too, step back and say, hey, I ain't up on that. I doubted that. I completely outed that. So now we have the process of a constitutional crime being committed, because once you break the standard operating procedures, it is now being seen as a criminal act. So what Claudette Singh did now becomes a constitutional crime because she stepped out of her previews, the boundaries that confines her. She stepped out of her standard operating procedures. which is constitutional. I don't care how much they cut me off tonight. They can bounce me off how much times they want. Can't stop Gavin Matthews. I'm a force to reckon with. Take that from me. I talk in the name. I like talk the name. I like call these criminals out. So what happens now? If they said the court is right, now I want y'all listen to me carefully. Although I got no respect for Roxanne George Wiltshire, she said something that made a lot of sense. Now, if you are challenging me or the 60, a declaration already made, you're not challenging the person to declare the declaration. It's common sense. Why y'all listen? You're challenging Claudette Singh, who are now trying to declare Order 60 to be winners of the regional general election. You're not challenging her. What you're challenging is Order 60. That means you already gave up the 10 declared districts. You already gave up the standard operating procedures of the 10 returning officer. You're now challenging Order 60. So hear what she says. Since Claudette Singh is the creator, which is unconstitutional, but she is the creator of Order 60. Well, then you're guided by Order 60. So you got to go back to that same criminal and listen to the instructions of that criminal so you can be part of a constitutional crime. So this is what happened now. Paul Owenfield, he ain't got a choice. He went back and declared the recount that she had wanted. What was the recount? The recount was certified ballots and not valid ballots. There's a difference of certification of ballots and valid ballots. Certification is simple. You look at the ballot, it's original, it's certified. Count them. It's common sense. When you count in these ballots, it doesn't matter whether they're good or bad, they are ballots. You got to count them. If they are valid ballots, now you have to count the validity of the ballots. That did not happen. They counted certified ballots. If they had counted the validity of the ballots, well, then the second declaration of the recount would have still given the APNU AFC victory at the polls because he had to abstract the unvalid ballots and count the valid ballots. It's common sense. But since that Order 60 that created the recount does not ask for the validity of a ballot, it asks for the certification of a ballot that now makes the election somewhat credible, according to the RAT. You understand what I mean? Simple. It's common sense. I hope people who are looking tonight, who are now joining, can understand what I'm saying. It's not a hard thing. It's not a rock between a hard place. It's easy to understand what went on into our country to obstruct our constitutional process of a declaration of an election. So, after that process has happened, you now declare an electoral process that is unconstitutional. Now we're making a declaration of an electoral process that's now being unconstitutional. So now, the political party that is in question, or the executive president that is in question, was never duly elected. So we got problems here now. Listen to the problems here now. So you had a swearing in of a president and his cabinet. Because he was never elected, he now become an installed president. He was never elected by the Constitution. He was never elected by the will of the people. So he now become an installed president. So the Constitution now becomes variable, or it becomes varied. I'll show you why now. Oh, we have to explain why. Every case now they carry before the High Court becomes thrown out, because if you understand, you cannot represent the Constitution when you become installed by an order which is unconstitutional. So it becomes harder. For reasons, let me show you. The elections petitioner that was before the appellate court now becomes part of the court of the chancellor's court, because she now sits on that court to represent the Constitution when the Constitution is now being challenged by the chief lawyer of the Constitution, which is the Attorney General. Office of the Attorney General is challenging the Constitution. And you want to say you want a viable opposition to challenge you. Look what we got for work with. Well, look what we got for work with. Look at the disrespect we got for work with. Look at all them chatteries we got work with. Such gross disrespect, not even the own international community doesn't even respect them. At least I don't. So you ain't gotta look far into the international community. I don't. So let's get back to the topic. So now, you find all after this process has happened. Now we have an unconstitutional government. Now we have a government that partakes in every moment of the day unconstitutional activity. They are now capital criminals because they have seized authority not by constitution. Here, I can pray to God I don't become a presidential candidate, because a lot of people are getting locked up. Plenty. It's the whole cabinet I put in jail. And plus, the chief election, the chairman of the Ghana Elections Commission of Commissioners, I had to put she in and make a nice cell for her because she got to go to jail too. Them people just got to go and sit down in jail and rotten for playing with people's constitutional rights. You think it's easy? You think it's easy to play with people's will? It's a violation of a human right. Well, let me get out of the place. Let me explain so people could be educated. So standard operating procedures, constitutional is being violated. So now, we got a country that is now run by an installed dictator terrorist regime. That is terrorism in its plain words. As long as you can take away the will of the people and dictate upon the will of the people, it's terrorism. Now, here was the problem now. The opposition went ahead, went into parliament and swore themselves in as members of the opposition, increasing the capabilities of a dictatorship and throwing out the standard operating procedures, I don't want to hear nothing else from nobody. Because the minute you swear yourself in as an opposition, it means you accept the standard operating procedures of an illegitimate government, not a legitimate, of an illegitimate government. As an installed government, you now become a part of that de facto regime. I'm mad, yes. I'm mad. Because your standard operating procedures could only be activated when a government is being duly elected by the Constitution, by 10 declared returning officers. Now, this is what happened now. Now, when this charade is now in place and this nonsense is going on, what do you think will happen to the chief elections officer and everybody under him? They got to resign. You know why they got to resign? Because they were prevented from operating under the standard operating procedures, the SOPs of the Constitution that guides their office. They got to resign. What sense I'm making? The de facto regime pushing me out so I can come out of office. They're sending me home on leave. When I come back, they tell me I'm going to work after them. Then for me to operate under the Constitution, there's no Constitution for me to operate. Even if they got to defend me, which is the opposition, how can they? There's no Constitution. The minute you put 10 the returning officers, 10 declared districts, you take it and put it in a corner. That is the Constitution. Whether we like it or not, they ain't got no nice way to phase it off. They ain't got no nice way to polish it either. So when a man like me stands up in the streets to talk about the constitutional violation among its people by a de facto terrorist regime and being taken to court for freedom of speech and the exercise of my will as a Guyanese. You could imagine that, to stand up and hear the nonsense and the charade that comes and the filth that comes out of these people's mouths. And we, people of a nation, got to sit down and accept this craziness. Why? Why must we sit down and accept this nonsense? No, we got to tit for tat political play. Suddenly you hear nothing but the elections petition. It gone quiet. The de facto regime ain't talking about it. The opposition ain't talking about it. They're talking about new opposition leader. You know, there's a press conference we want to hold. What happened to our constitution? Forget about the SOPs. If you want to talk, forget about the statement of polls. What happened to our constitution? Where is the representation of our constitution? When are people going to respect the supreme law of this land? I don't care who it fits and who it suits, because people want to change it now. You can imagine that nonsense. And we now got to challenge them, take them to court for the full representation of the Constitution. Y'all get what I'm saying, really? And because Gavin Matthews sitting down and talking about it, oh, he's supposed to talk. There's a black man. Paint all kind of, well, they can't paint no image about me because I let her know early o'clock that my screws are loosed. They ain't got nothing holding up my portrait in the wall. Do not early o'clock and ever challenge any system. I prefer die trying doing it than to sit down and accept that nonsense. It's not a skin teeth game. You don't have to do it entertainment. This is serious business. This is serious business. And when we can get the drift of understanding the business that is now be involving us, hmm? I don't, you know, let's get back to the SOPs, standing operating procedures, because I think a lot of people don't really understand what's going on. So now we have an illegitimate government. We have an illegitimate Ghana Elections Commission and commissioners. We have so many things that is illegitimate that I now say that we should not participate in an election because the people who are now governed to come off or to throw out an elections are illegal. They are unconstitutional. By way of constitution, they're not supposed to hold such an office because they were never elected. Our constitution provides for duly elected people and parties to participate in governmental affairs. That is what our constitution provides for. For people to participate in governmental affairs. Now, we have the most daunting thing ahead of us. You can't have a local government election anymore because, the de facto regime would never allow that to happen. Let me tell you all a secret. The most viable election in Guyana is a local government election. They don't want the people to represent themselves at a local level because they want the executive to pass and dictate over them. They would never encourage a local government election. They have shown that and they have done that over a period of 23 years. Think they're going to do it now? They only talk about democracy. But they're sending the chief house slaves to represent Guyana and talk about democracy. Where is the democracy that they're talking about? Because they're not activating and executing the standard operating procedures of that democracy. Let's get it straight. I don't bend, twist, or turn to nobody. When I get vexed, that's it. We got to get it right. Don't address us like if we're fools. Address the elephant in the room. The elephant in the room is the unconstitutionality of an executive government. They are now occupiers. They're squatters. They're not tenants of the Constitution. The Constitution only provides for tenants. It did not provide for occupiers of the Constitution or squatters. It provides for tenants. So you can't illegally occupy. The minute you occupy, it's illegal. You have to become a tenant that is legal. Because to become a tenant, you have to sign a contract to occupy. And you've been given that contract every 5 years. Everything gone dead. So those who are now joining, we're talking about the standard operating procedures of a democracy. And we don't have that in Guyana. This is not a democracy. This is an autocracy. Today I was having, when I came up with this topic tonight, I was having a simple conversation with a policeman from another country. Surprisingly, he called in and we were having a conversation. And right away he turned on the light bulb when he talked about standard operating procedures of a police force. Then I sat back and I said, wait, the democratic arms of a democracy is the standing operating procedures, like the Election Service Commission, like the Police Service Commission, like the Teachers Service Commission. All of these people are democratic arms of a democracy that practices standing operating procedures and all that falls under them. And I said, oh, I now see. I now see. Okay. I understand what's going on now. Your eyes are being opened because for me, I try to understand things the brighter way. But this political climate, I'm not accepting it. I don't care how politics rule the day. The minute you take away the constitution of the people, it's not politics anymore. It's a dictatorship. It's an oppressive regime. It's a terrorist government. That is who Irfan Ali is. Hear me? He's governing a regime that practices terror. On a nation of a people. Know me already. I'm ready for you. I am ready for you. Tell y'all already. I give up this. My country at any time. I ain't gonna sit down and allow it to sink. I ain't entertaining no boy or girl. When they come here, they got talk the things that are affecting a country that is disseminating. They talk about bringing in businesses. The Attorney General, you know why people ain't coming here? Because they've already seen what you've done. You become an occupier, unconstitutional. They got too many things going on. You can't settle. You intend to settle. You can't settle. Not here. One person asking me on this, how can this be fixed? You know how it got to be fixed? The government got to step down. Put it into caretaker process and have an elections done. Have a house-to-house registration done. And the caretaker process is with 3 persons. The Chancellor of the Judiciary that becomes the interim president, the Chief of Staff of the Ghana Defense Force that becomes the prime regional body that governs all ministries, and the Ghana Police Force that exercise law and order to make sure that this process has been done. That's the very first 3. The political parties could waltz how much they want. They got to respect the Constitution of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana. Because if you can't get one of them to exercise the Constitution, well, all of them got to face the penalty. That is what is happening. I am appalled. I'm so much ashamed. I just can't believe that all of you get up there and talk and still can't address the elephant in the room or the 60. Unconstitutionality of a process that took away the will and the rights of a people. Sit down and watch y'all for months. Holding you all these at transport. Let's waltz. It can't happen. Since when the people voted for the rights to be exercised has to be taken away from them, from 3 criminals. And then you now telling me I must sit down and accept them and smile brightly? Hell no. Well, here, for people like you, Mr. Max Brown, I'm going to tell you this here now. For people like you who peddles fear, fear would always be instilled in the minds of those. For people like me who don't peddle fear, I peddle power to the people. Because that's where the power is. It's in the hands of the people. We say what we want to happen in our country. Not a gang of 3 or 8. We say, as a people, what we want and what must be done in our country. That is what I am talking about. And for those who are looking, you know who I voted for, yes. That's why I'm so upset when the government of my choice that I voted for that gave me 5 years of peace and tranquility stepped down and hand power to a terrorist group of people because they were represented by an embassy with a witch on a broomstick that represented the orange man in the United States of America. That is what happened. They stepped down and gave this country over to the State Department. And what happened after then? Hell break loose. 2 young boys who've been shot and killed. 2 young boys being shot and being killed, slaughtered, not shot and killed, being slaughtered by a group of men because his men is doing kind of crime. 7, one of them high head off nearly, dismembered his spinal cord. What a gruesome death. You can't find the culprits of that, but you could find a man who liked the fire and burn down an entire building, a police station. You could find it quick, 24 hours. What a shame and of embarrassment of a statement. The commissioner of police is supposed to resign. Because you are the person in charge of bringing out such a statement. I can't believe the information office of the Guyana Police Force can allow a statement like that to come out into public. Mama wrap some sponge around some wire and light it a fire with a lighter. He must stick some party body and light a fire at the police station because he vexed because of incarceration. You could imagine that. You could imagine that. And here was the niceness of all. We have leaders who every Guyanese are depending on to represent them. And the representation is being slowly creeping in because why? Somebody decided to keep quiet. Somebody decided to keep quiet. Somebody decided to put crazy glue on their lips. All right. So the standing operating procedures couldn't work. So we have a de facto installed terrorist regime. So Gavin Matthews decided to say not a bit of it. Not at all. So they're trying to find a charge. Poor Gavin Matthews, he doesn't have a criminal record. Because I never was a thief. I never did rape. I never did kill. I never tried to dismember or to do anything to anybody. I kept him a poor little corner until I aroused myself by the injustices being played out upon my country, upon the people that I call brothers and sisters Guyanese. I get tired of it. Decide to speak out. It becomes a problem. I tell you all already, I'm a force to reckon with. And I don't stop. Friend, the only thing that could stop me is death. And in my dying grave, I'll continue. I'll be a scar upon your racial memories that you will never forget. Ain't got no buy, no place, no administration, no system that could stop me. I am tired of this nonsense. It can never be business as usual. It can't be. It must not be accepted as business as usual. I sat down there for 2 weeks past and I watched and I looked upon the charade of the political climate in this country, and nobody's talking about the right things. Nobody. I'm unapologetic. I have no apologies to no one. Y'all talk about the opposition, or they call themselves the opposition together, they gotta act together. Because this nonsense got to stop. Time you start a revolution and becoming an opposition. Revolt against such a penal system that terrorizes a nation. When a man speak, he got to run. For what? From whom? From them boys you call tigers. Them ain't no tigers, they frighten no one shadow. Ask say funny turn off all the lights in the house, you get a heart attack. Them boys frighten their own shadow. Standing operating procedures, that is the point of this talk tonight. Simple example, the SWAT team, they are being governed by a standard operating procedures. They only become activated when there's an uprising and they have to go and suppress the suppressors that's trying to suppress the system. That is their action. So they're called in to make sure that that has been kindled. So when they turn up, it's to kill or be killed. You can send a SWAT team to barge into a man's home. Leave Georgetown. Leave Georgetown, friend. You can imagine people saying, I'm going to tell you the stupidness. And we as Guyanese are going to take the tablet to push him out to swallow it. These people leave Georgetown with the intentions of going to Dartmouth to put a bullet in a man. And we must sit down and accept this nonsense. That was their intentions the minute they kicked down the door. It's not that they're going to pull nobody alive from nowhere. It's an elite section of the Ghana Police Force, which is a SWAT squad, and they could only move based upon direction of intelligence. So what are you trying to tell me? Who sent what, where, and how? Suddenly, a big carpet raised up, and it gets swept on the carpet. Nobody talking about it no more. Suddenly, the house slave, Ben, went till there for talk about investigation. What are you investigating? What just happened? Who investigating who really here, man? Standard operating procedures of a SWAT team that was trained by the Ghana Police Force is to go and to suppress any situation. That means if they have to kill people, that is their duty. And that is their number one duty. So this is why when you pick up the phone and you activate them, training kicks in. And these boys kick down the doors, not to go and say, police, put your hands in the air. It's to expect retaliation. So when they kick down the door and they see an image move, it's dead. So what are you really telling a nation of people? Oh, we look like fools. We look like fools. And we got some people who suddenly realize that their faculties are intact, but only by misinformation. Go sit down and talk a lot of nonsense. And most of these people in Guyana, they're outside of Guyana. They ain't coming home. And people who we fighting for are fighting with on this comment. They ain't coming home to Guyana. To that person who talking about me on YouTube, it is G Matthews. Just type in G Matthews and you'll get me. I have to change the channel because the banned me from one. So I open up another one because I talk about the covert. When are we going to open our eyes and realize what has been done to us as a people and as a nation is terrorism? Guyana now becomes like Nazi Germany. We're now in concentration camps. Of entertainment. Different sections of the country are falling in or falling under an entertainment group where prostitution, gun running, drugs, and crime are now on the rise. Our little girl children now going out there and picking peppers for $3,000 a wine back. That is what is going on in this country. By under the standard operating procedures of the PPP, that is unconstitutional. So don't tell me something that doesn't make sense. Let me understand exactly what is being done. And I understand clearly because nobody's doing nothing about it. And we like the lawlessness that's going on right now. So black people suddenly got a representation. We got a dunce going out there for tell people but reparation. How can you represent me When your family, your foreparents were never enslaved, they don't know what is slavery. And you yourself is practicing slavery in the country that you want to be head of by terrorism. You talking to people like if you representing me? Since when? I am so pissed off. Seriously. Hmm. Guyana, there have been so many things that have been done into this country over a period of time of a year and change since this terrorist regime is in place. They have only practiced terror upon a nation that has a majority now. We are not a minority anymore. We are a majority. And they're trying to divide us within the majority by having prime and chief house slaves and slaves. We're now living on a plantation that calls Guyana, run by the Department of State under through the Embassy of the United States of America, controlling the dummies that call themselves slave masters, trying to instill slavery upon a nation that had independence such a long time ago. It's time to rise up. Too much nonsense. I give Jackie jacket. I stay off the air for more than 2 weeks. You don't see from time to time I started me coming out tonight. Take my rest. Just to see what would be said. I don't want to know what the PPP is doing every day. They are installed. They're unconstitutional. They're not legitimate. So everything that they do is unconstitutional. It becomes a crime. I want to thank those who have joined in tonight, who took their time out to be a part of the show, who are in the live comment, who share the live, who try to communicate. I want to say thank you very much for being here. Tune in tomorrow night as I come to you again with another topic. And I'm fresh off the line. The topic will be ranging from time to time, and it's to enlighten you and educate you from time to time. I want to say that please don't forget the referendum. To vote on the referendum, go to the Gavin Matthews-Bey site, vote for it, vote, open it up, vote on it, then contribute to the GoFundMe, which is available to pay for the referendum to be activated within the office of the Chancellor of the Judiciary. I want to say to you to stay safe, be careful, sanitize yourself, wear a mask. Don't forget the little ones to take into public places. For anyone who wants to get in contact with me, please call me at the number below, 611-6575, either direct or by WhatsApp. Stay safe again. This is Dr. Matthew saying good night. Cheerios for now.